Luka Nation community, ladies and gentlemen of Luka Nation. What's this? This is Scouts episode 4, Conrad?
I believe so. Yes, I believe. Is it 4 or is it 5? 3? I think it's 4. I'm pretty sure it's 4.
Scouts episode 4, going 4. This is exciting. We love this show. Sometimes, because Cage and I does a daily show. Cage and I do a daily show. I forget about Scouts because Conrad and I jump on here once a week to talk NBA. But then I remember, I love NBA. This is the best time of the NBA season. We're 2 weeks away from playoffs, and the race is getting pretty tight, pretty interesting. Yeah. We have the play-in spot. There's so many things to talk about. I mean, Jason Tatum is on a roll. He just passed Larry Bird for most points in a 3-game span. He also became the third player of all time with 60 points and no turnovers. So guys on a roll. We have so many different things to talk about today. First, I want to turn it over to you, Conrad, and then we'll get into all the topics. What's exciting you in the NBA in general? What are you watching,
in general, it's just kind of getting ready for the playoff race, right? I'm also, getting like this is officially the time where I start to do a little bit more prospecting, or at least paying more attention to, the college guys. That way I can get a little bit of a heads up on the draft right before they start coming in. So it's a mix of both, right? I'm paying a lot of attention to, the closing games of the season because I think now we've only got about 10 games left. Very exciting to see who's going to make it and who's not, especially because of how even it is this year. And then, like I just mentioned, college guys as well, incoming rookies. Very excited to see, who do I believe in and who I don't, right? Who do I think is going to be my Patrick Williams or my Bull from the past 2 years, and who won't, right? So it's going to be pretty cool to watch. I'm excited. I'm hyped for sure.
And guys, we're doing more graphics, when it comes to NBA cards and NBA stats. What one graphic we posted today was a guy drafted 2012 or later, NBA Eastern Conference, shoots, I think it was at 40% from three-point range. So we're just doing these fun graphics, very light, just to get people engaged, talk about stats and things like that. Do you see your Indiana Pacers put up 152?
57-point win over the Oklahoma City Thunder. And now, granted, it's not like the Thunder are exactly a very scary or competitive team, especially without Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. But a 57-point win is a 57-point win. I'll take that any day of the week. It's pretty exciting to see. I was hoping it would be 60 because we were only 3 points off. And when I found that, because I wasn't able to tune in last night, but someone sent me a message and they're like, yo, your Pacers are killing the Thunder right now. And so I looked it up, and I think we were up by 62 or something like that. And I'm like, please, I want to end with a 60-point lead. By far would be the largest margin of victory that we've had this year. But it didn't happen. So it's all right. 57 points is still 57 points.
Last year at this time, this was kind of at this time in the season, it was July or August because we were going into the bubble. There was, at least for me, I thought the Lakers were the clear-cut favorites. Mm-hmm. Going into this postseason, I think it's so wide open. I think it's really, really difficult to know who's going to be. I just don't think there's a top dog. And we're going to talk a little bit about, I would say, let's start here. One of the topics Conrad prepared was players returning from injury. So how does LeBron and LaMelo's return affect the rest of the season for each prospective team? Let me add a little caveat there. LaMelo was thought to be out for the full year, and now he's back. 2 weeks left in the regular season and postseason. Charlotte, they're in contention. And I really like Miles Bridges and how that dynamic is going. We'll talk about that here in a second. Also, Anthony Davis might be worth lumping into that LeBron category.
Yeah.
But take it away, Conrad. How do you feel that those respective guys coming back are going to have it? What impact are they going to have?
The thing is, I'm a little concerned about LaMelo. Granted, it's only been one game that we've actually been able to see him back, so it's kind of hard to tell just how healthy he is. With him coming back, it was an all right game. Honestly, a little bit underwhelming. He is a rookie. He's returning from injury. I'm not going to give him crap for it. But as far as how big his impact can be if he continues to play like this, it won't quite be as great as we would hope or great as we would originally think, right? Because before, he was finally starting, and I think he was averaging 20-plus points a game, which is ridiculous for, many players in the NBA, but especially for a rookie, and of course doing a great job playmaking as well because that's who he is, right? I do think that he's great back on the Hornets roster because gives him a whole playmaking aspect that they don't really have otherwise, right? He runs the offense, whereas, they have guys that can do a little bit of playmaking. Gordon Hayward's all right. Terry Rozier's all right. they're solid, but they're not LaMelo where you can be comfortable with giving him the ball and letting him run the offense. So I guess honestly, as far as his return, I kind of wonder if they rushed him back from injury because they were slipping in the standings. Now they are currently the 8th seed with the Pacers, currently only half a game behind them. And if they do slip, I mean that makes them the 9th seed with the Wizards on a hot streak close behind them. It's not a great recipe for them, right? There's potential for them to not maybe get eliminated, but it would be a hard road to kind of climb back up and, get back to where they were originally. So I do wonder if he was rushed back a little bit. And I do think for him specifically, it's a little bit too early to tell just how good his impact will be. I am expecting, though, if they do remain, of course, in playoff contention, which I do believe that they will, and as we continue during these last few games of the NBA season, I do expect him to obviously start performing a little bit better than he did last night. There's no doubt in my mind about that whatsoever. And as far as LeBron and Anthony Davis goes, Anthony Davis has not looked amazing. And I mean, honestly, in general, this season has kind of been a down season for him, to say the least. I don't know if there's something going on that we just don't know about, but it has not really looked good. And I mean, granted, him not looking good is still pretty much an all-star caliber player, so it's not too bad. But your second superstar isn't exactly playing at a superstar level, which is a little bit concerning. And you hope that can eventually change. I mean, obviously, having LeBron and Anthony Davis back automatically makes the Lakers a lot better because they're now currently tied for the 5th, 6th, or 7th seed with a record of 36-28. They're tied with the Mavericks and the Trailblazers. So they're all currently tied in that position. And there's just a lot. There's a lot going on, right? Because LeBron has obviously complained about the play-in games now that he's officially a 7th seed. A lot of people are talking about, so now LeBron's talking about the play-in games when originally he wanted to have the play-in games for the teams that wouldn't have as many games, and now he's complaining about them because his team is slipping and kind of underperforming. So I do think that they'll obviously finish.
Let's talk about LeBron a little bit.
Go right ahead. Yeah.
Let's talk about LeBron a little bit. I want to like this guy. He's so hard to like, man. He's so hypocritical. Your internet is a little glitchy, so you were right about that, Conrad. Your internet is a little glitchy, but that's okay because we're going to make this work. He's so difficult to like. He's so hypocritical in so many different I struggle to understand LeBron. I really do, because here on one side, this guy is an incredible athlete, incredible specimen. Everywhere he goes, his team is literally in the playoffs and in the finals just about every single year automatically. But then on the other side, it's like he feels like, to me, he's above the game. He feels like he's above the other players. Even the way he plays the game. He's very lazy sometimes. Sometimes he just decides to take plays or quarters or even halves or games off. I'll give you an example. They played the Raptors yesterday. They played the Raptors without OG, without Fred VanVleet, without Chris Boucher, without most of their team. And they lost. They were down by 20 points. And that's the frustration. A lot of MJ fans, I wasn't an MJ fan because he was a little bit before my time, but I was a Kobe fan. You love seeing these guys leave it all on the court every night. I remember Kobe once said this quote. He's like, you have no excuse to take time off, because let me rephrase that. He had a back injury, and he was trying to get himself in the game, and he's reminding himself that people pay their hard-earned money to come to these games and watch you perform. And here, LeBron has been given everything through NBA, through basketball. And somehow it's just frustrating as a fan to not know which days he's going to bring it, which days he's going to turn it on. If he doesn't turn it on, is he going to complain? Is he going to flop? So I struggle. I saw that quote too. I'm glad you brought it up, Conrad. I'm like, this guy's just so hypocritical. And as much as I want to invest in his cards. I think they're cheap. He's just a difficult guy to like. Sorry to go a little sad there.
No, you're perfectly fine there. And I mean, it's understandable, right? He's kind of changed. I mean, obviously, a player like him, he's going to change a lot of things about the game just because he is so great. Even if you're not a huge fan of him, there's no denying that he is one of, if not the best player in the NBA, or one of the greatest of all time, or the greatest of all time. I don't really care what you say or what you think, as long as, obviously he's in that conversation. That's fine, right? We all understand just how good LeBron has been and the things that he's been able to change. And some of the things that he has changed he's changed how contract situations work in the NBA, but more importantly, especially at the moment, is players don't try as hard during the regular season. That way they are ready for the playoffs. He does that. Kawhi does that. I don't think Giannis is doing it this season, but he might be, considering that they're the 3rd seed, whatever. Kevin Durant might be doing that, but that is something that he does, right? So, probably I'm expecting around playoff time, he's definitely going to be turning it up, but I understand that from a fan's perspective, exactly like you said. If you are paying money to watch this guy play and he chooses this to be one of the games where it's like, it's not that big of a deal, win or lose. I'm okay with it as long as we're still in playoff contention, or as long as we still have a chance to win a championship. I'm happy. I understand. It sucks to see. And I do agree that's one of the biggest issues with him as far as, MJ fans putting him in the GOAT conversation or being willing to, say, hey, he is this good or he's this bad or whatever. The flopping and some of the stuff that he says off the court, the excuses, the moving to Hollywood, stuff like that. It pisses a lot of people off and rubs people the wrong way, right? It just kind of depends on what era of basketball that you grew up with, and that's kind of going to determine how you judge other players in the future. Because I can guarantee you, 10 years from now, 20 years from now, the next best player is going to come along. Everybody that's an NBA fan now is going to hate him, while everyone that grows up watching this player or that watched like 5 years of basketball before it is going to be agreeing with them. I understand where you're coming from. It's a difficult situation to say the least. So,
Bucks, amazing. When's the last time you saw Kevin Durant's shot get blocked?
I honestly don't know. I mean, he's been off the court for a while, but Giannis, they were going head to head, but Giannis was unbelievable to say the least. Unbelievable.
So Durant's like a 7-footer, 7'1". His wingspan's what, 7'5", and he shoots a fadeaway, right? So the hardest shot to guard, guy's 7 foot tall, and Giannis blocked him. That was one of the most impressive blocks I've seen in my life. I think Giannis had one of those in the All-Star game, actually. But I'm telling you right now, sell on the Bucks. I think the Bucks are a goner this playoffs.
I agree.
Now, here's the frustrating thing. If they have favorable matchups, and I don't hedge a lot, but I will hedge here. If they have favorable matchups, injury or they don't catch a team at their best, they can win. But this team lacks so much creativity offensively. They run the same exact play time and time and time again, the dribble handoff. I'm curious to see the Bucks and when they're going to finally make a change. I know this wasn't one of your topics, but do you want to talk about the Bucks and what you see for them? With them in the playoffs?
One thing I just want to mention before I get into it. What would you consider a favorable matchup? Let me read you some of the teams in playoff contention, and let's see who really is a favorable matchup. So I would say 76ers and Nets aren't a favorable matchup. Not saying that the Bucks can't beat them, but it's not a team. It's not teams that you would say, we expect them to win this. Like, this is like a guarantee, right? It's not going to be a walk in the park against either one of them. The teams below that: Knicks, Hawks, Heat, Celtics, Hornets, Pacers, and Wizards. Pacers, and that was in order from 4 to 10 seed, right? So what teams out of those 6, I think it's 6, maybe 7, out of those 6 or 7 teams, what would be a favorable matchup? Who would be the favorable matchups in there? At least in your opinion. I'm just interested to hear this.
So I'm curious if the Knicks could beat the Sixers. I'm curious about that. So, for example, if the Knicks could beat the Sixers, and we can talk about the Sixers because they look a little bit disappointing to me. But the Knicks could beat the Sixers, for example, that's a favorable matchup for the Bucks. I think the Hawks are a very favorable matchup for the Bucks. Even the Sixers, I've been watching the Sixers play. Their offense is very, very predictable. They just give it to Embiid in the post. They're very limited offensively. So a favorable matchup also is when just the team shots aren't falling for a series, right? So a favorable matchup the Pacers obviously aren't getting there. The Hornets aren't getting there. Those are easy, obviously sweep. I think if they could meet up with the Nets in the Eastern Conference Finals, and the Nets have either been beaten up by a really tough series before that, or the Nets don't make it there, and whether the Knicks or the Hawks or the Sixers meet the Bucks, I think those are all favorable matchups for them.
Understandable. I would kind of agree with that. 76ers, I wouldn't say is anywhere near as favorable as Knicks or Hawks because I still do think that they're better teams. Actually, Knicks may be, pretty good because their defense is going to be much stronger than the Hawks would be. Yeah, I mean, I kind of agree with you there. I'm curious to see how
But the issue with the Sixers is we'll get to the Celtics. They're so high low. They're so high low. They can play their best game, and Embiid's unstoppable. Absolutely unstoppable. Simmons will get you 12, 15. Curry and Danny Green are hitting their threes, and Tobias Harris is putting up 30 points. That's what they're at their best. That's tough to beat. But recently, like I watched the Spurs game the other day, they didn't run any offense. They just threw it to Embiid in the post, and Embiid just, instead of even going to the rim, he does this like shimmy shake fadeaway. Well, that's not going to work.
He's really struggling right now, in my opinion. It's like offensively. His defense is still pretty good, but offensively, he is struggling. He's struggling to score. His playmaking isn't terrible, but he's definitely struggling to get a bucket. And that's not exactly good if one of your bigger scoring options isn't able to, get any of his shots. It kind of creates a bit of a problem for you if you're trying to contend for a championship. And
that's the issue.
Yeah,
he doesn't have offensive game. So when he could get the tip-in game winner, which is amazing, but that's not a playmate. Like even Embiid's moves are limited. Like they're not. I don't know if you've watched like Kevin Durant, you have, and Michael Porter Jr. They have all these offensive weapons. They could go right, they could go left, they could pull up, they could get to the rim, they could get halfway to the rim and fade. Having all of these tools in the tool belt is really important, especially when playoff time comes and teams scout you. So that's how I see it. Sorry to cut you off, Conrad.
No, I mean, I agree with you there. They're both as far as scoring goes, they're both pretty limited. They're not super versatile players as far as scoring the ball and being able to create their own shot goes, which is going to kind of limit you as a contender in the NBA, especially if there's teams like the Nets that have all these guys that can create their own shots at such a high level, or the Lakers or the Clippers or the Nuggets, or pretty much a lot of the teams in the Western Conference that are stacked, to say the least, with guys like that. So I understand that. The one team I was just going to mention that you didn't mention was the Celtics. I don't think that they would be able to beat the Bucks, but I mean, if they come back and they're healthy, they're actually a lot scarier than people are giving them credit for. They've been beaten up a lot this season, but things are really looking good for them, at least in my opinion, right? They have Kemba Walker's finally kind of taking on more of a playmaking role for this team. I mean, it's not amazing, but he's finally kind of focusing less on his scoring and more on, doing a little bit more playmaking for the offense, which allows Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown to go to work on their own. Robert Williams has obviously stepped it up a lot as a center. Excellent shot blocker / rim protector. Does an excellent job for them there. And, Marcus Smart is their glue guy, their hustle guy. Fantastic player. One of my favorite players in the NBA, if not my most favorite player in the NBA for that reason. And their bench is really stepping it up as well, finally, right? Because Aaron Naismith, at least in his past 2 games, has played very well. Hopefully
he's played really well.
Continue that. Yeah, very, very well. Kind of reminding me a little bit of Buddy Hield, at least just these 2 games.
That's a good comp. That's a great comp.
Yeah,
that's a good comp.
That's in my opinion. Peyton Pritchard as well, pretty solid. Bench option as well.
But these are all. Here's my issue with the Celtics. They're all guards. It's back to what you said. They needed a Miles Turner. They just didn't make a move. They're all guards.
They lack wing depth. They lack good wing depth, and then of course they don't really have a great backup option at center either, which kind of sucks for them. Evan Fournier is solid, but he's another guard, like you said. So I do think that when they're clicking and everyone's healthy, I think they can put up a fight against the Bucks. Although I wouldn't expect them to win, at least to me. Now, when they're healthy is the thing, and that's just one thing I want to mention is Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown are both injured. At least right now.
Yep.
I don't know if you saw it. Portland Trail Blazers, last few seconds of the game. Inbound pass from, I believe, Norman Powell. They're both chasing it. They collide. I think it was Jason Tatum's leg and Jaylen Brown's foot. Tatum had both his leg and his foot. Brown fell on his leg and also stepped on his foot, I believe. They went down.
Wait, they both got hurt in the same play?
On the same play. They ran into each other, same play, and wrapping up the game. And Jason Tatum was able to walk off the court, which is a good sign. He was limping, but he was at least able to walk off. Jaylen Brown needed help. Jason Tatum said he's hoping to be back relatively soon. He thinks, he said, I'll see how I feel the next day or next game and, make my decision then. But Jaylen Brown hasn't spoken to the media. There have been zero updates on actually either one of these guys really that like have actually said, hey, here's what's going on. I mean, what are they going to do? Are they going to slip out of playoff contention? But most importantly, what does that mean for them when it comes to the playoffs? I mean, if they do miss one of those guys, all of a sudden one of these top Eastern Conference teams may have a very easy first round matchup, or the Pacers or the Wizards are able to sneak into the postseason because they're able to beat one of these teams, and all of a sudden, like the door is wide open for one of them, right? So just something I wanted to mention. I don't know if you have any thoughts on it, but to the last couple games of the season, this is kind of important news, and it's kind of just creating an insane scenario to say the least.
It's funny. I watched that whole game. I turned it off at the very end. I
Man.
didn't see that play. I thought Jaylen Brown was already kind of nagging an injury, nursing an injury. I don't know if you saw that. He was kind of he doesn't feel 100% himself even the last few weeks. And the reason I know that is Jaylen Brown's a guy that plays inside out, not outside in. Right? He's a streaky shooter. He could go off. He really can. But he gets to the rim. The guy gets to the rim. He gets offensive rebounds. He gets putbacks, and that kind of gives him confidence to take that outside shot. He hasn't been attacking the rim as much, so I already thought he was nursing an injury. I just think the way that the Celtics can beat you is very one-dimensional. They're just going to try to outscore you with iso ball, whether that's Kemba going off, Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown. And really what they need is two of the guys to go off, but really to contend, they need all three of those guys to be 30-point scorers. Right,
or they need a better bench than what they've got now.
But that's magic. That's not going to happen. So you're going to have Tatum, Brown, and Kemba really having to carry the load. They're already not fully healthy. It hasn't been a great season for them. Tatum famously said, like, I'm still taking the ventilator. What is that thing called? Before games, I'm not fully back from inhaler. I just don't see them as a threat. The last few years, they were like a 1, 2, or 3 seed, which I think was overperforming. This year they're going to be a 7, 8, or 6 seed, which I actually think is a little bit below. So they might have a little bit of a bark in them. They're going to be an underdog, but I don't think they have enough.
It depends. I mean, it heavily depends on this injury. It depends on how serious both of their injuries are, how long they may be out, and how well they're able to recover, at least in my opinion. Because they looked solid, at least relatively solid the past couple of games. I mean, not perfect because they still have a lot of issues as far as this team is concerned. But I do agree. Out of whatever the 5 through 10 seeds, they're probably the most underrated, or at least have the best chance to, scare a team in the first round. Maybe besides the Heat. I do really like the Heat. Depending on Victor Oladipo's injury as well. Lots of guys injured. Lots of guys injured this season, I guess. Right?
I think it's shaping up to be a cakewalk for the Nets. If I'm really like, the East is so easy.
To the finals, yes. In the finals, we'll have to wait and see. And it kind of depends on
matchups
too. But yes, I agree. Now, I mentioned the Celtics. They've been looking all right the past few games. A team that has been looking a lot better recently, at least to me. I don't know about you. The Minnesota Timberwolves, baby. I'm not a Timberwolves fan whatsoever. I don't even like a lot of guys on this roster by any means. In fact, I probably hate a lot of them. But they're finally listen. They're 4-6 in their last 10 or something like that. But for a team that had literally only won pretty much 15 games this entire season, that is so much improvement. And in my opinion, it's because they're finally fully healthy. D'Lo has suffered injuries. Karl Anthony Towns obviously caught the virus, and he's been dealing with injuries as well. Malik Beasley was suspended, and he also got injured, right? They've had a lot of injuries, and that's kind of been the thing with them the past couple of seasons. So the questions that I specifically wanted to propose are, first, what do you expect from them next season? And we'll move on to the second question after this. I personally said next season they would be a top 9 team minimum, right? They would be a borderline playoff team at the bare minimum next year, of course, if there are no major injuries that occur to this roster. What do you think about that take, or what are you thinking in general of this team next season, considering the pieces that they have and the pieces that they may be able to add in the offseason?
Well, what's interesting, so they're not 500, but they're basically a 500 team, I think maybe minus 2 games since March. So basically a 500 team since March. I haven't seen – here's the Timberwolves issue, in my opinion. I haven't seen them ever put together a full season. What I mean by that is, I think it was maybe last year, 2 years ago, they actually started off really well. I think they went like 10-2 a few years ago. And then they ended the season same way, 14, 15 seed, 13 seed in the West. I don't think they've ever put together a full season so that the team will see this is what we got. All right, we can build around Karl Anthony Towns and Anthony Edwards. That's what you need. You know that as a GM, you rebuild all the time. You love rebuilding.
Yep. Yeah.
You'd rebuild your family home if you could.
Yeah, sure.
GM mode to the family home. But here's the thing. I just don't think they know what they got. Even their best player, Karl Anthony Towns, I think let me choose my words carefully. I think he's an incredible talent. He lacks grit. And I think you've seen that over the last few years. Mm-hmm. Anthony Edwards, incredible personality, incredible athlete, but he's frankly not that good of a shooter. He's not that good of a player. He maybe has potential, a little bit overrated. I mean, who else we got? Like,
D'Angelo
I
Russell,
can't even name
Beasley, Jaden McDaniels, Josh Okogie, Jarrett Culver, guys like that.
But these are non-players. Like D'Angelo Russell had every opportunity to be a success. He's more than likely not going to be a success here in Minnesota, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I just they're playing well. They're about a 500 team. They have some young talent. I just don't know what they're building around, frankly. So I don't see a direction or an identity to their future. They lack leadership.
This is perfect for my next question. So what changes do you think they need to make in order to finally make a change in direction and start winning, or make a potential push towards a championship at least sometime in the future? It won't be like next season, but what sort of moves do they need to make in order to eventually contend or just not suck in the NBA? What are you thinking? I've got a couple of ideas. If you want, I'll mention them first. But if you've got some stuff that you want to talk about, go right ahead and mention it.
I'll tell you. I'll go quick. Tom Thibodeau. Bring in a proven winner coach, a guy that could build.
Does that?
They had Thibs?
Yeah, I think so.
They had
back in I want to say in the Wiggins, Towns, Levine, Butler era. I want to say it was back then. Because I think they had him, and then
I can't believe they had all four of those guys on one team. I can't believe they had all the four of those.
Unbelievable roster. And then Jimmy Butler left, and Wiggins was a bust, and Levine hadn't developed yet, tore his ACL. I will admit, even though they have a terrible front office, like they've dealt with a lot of issues. I mean, Wiggins was a bust, but then of course, Levine tore his ACL. I don't think Butler was on that team now that I think about it, because they traded Levine for Butler. Yeah. It was someone else besides Levine. Who was that? I really couldn't.
I think they lack culture, Conrad, though. I don't think they have culture. I don't think they know this is who I remember even in the Miami Heat down days, like a few years ago, they weren't a good, it was after LeBron, Wade, and all those guys were kind of at the tail end of their career. And it was before they had last year's run. They were kind of stuck in the middle. Even I don't even know if they made the playoffs, but the identity. You know what Pat Riley stands for. You know what Spoelstra stands for. And that's powerful. Like, I've been a part of a few businesses. I have the privilege of running a business. It's really important to build a culture and be like, this is who we are. This is our identity. This is what we stand for. Because if you don't, you just let your emotions ride with your successes. And sometimes when you rebuild an organization, success is a distant future. And you need to know who you are now. And that's why guys like Jimmy Butler, to me, are so important. So this is a long answer, but Udonis Haslem has been on the Miami Heat for 18 years. He hasn't played a single minute this year. Yeah, he hasn't played a single minute this year, but he's on the bench. He's a player coach. Every time someone comes off of the court, he's high-fiving them, talking to them, saying something in their ear. That's culture. That's identity. That kind of stuff is so important.
Okay. Not the answer that I was going with. I was talking about specific moves that you would make, but I still have the answer because I do.
Culture.
They lack a lot of stuff. Culture is definitely one of the biggest things. I do agree with that there. My opinion, I think they need to get rid of D'Angelo Russell, get a playmaker and / defender, someone that can play, make, and defend at the point guard position. Have Malik Beasley start so he can work off ball. Focus on improving Anthony Edwards is. I don't know for sure how to make his name like plural or however English works, right? Focus on his shot IQ so that way he's more efficient than how he is right now, because they're kind of just letting him shoot whatever he wants, and that's how he was in college and high school as well, which is not some habit that you want your superstar piece to develop, right? And if you do manage to keep your top pick this year, trade that away along with whatever to fill out the bench and go from there. Those are the moves that I personally think that they need to make, in my opinion, because they do look solid. Health is just kind of their issue, and they lack a lot of things. Culture being one of them, defense being one of them, a bit of playmaking being one of them, a little bit of a bench being one of them. So, they do lack a lot of stuff, and I agree with you there. The last topic I do want to bring up for discussion: name one or two guys, maybe three, that you expect to be the next Tyler Hero, or that you could see being the next Tyler Hero that we saw in the NBA bubble, right? A young player. I don't know for sure what young means to you. Personally, for me, it's like the past 3 seasons is when they got drafted. So right now it would be 2018 or 2019 or younger. That could potentially do a lot better in the playoffs than they have during the regular season, or have one really big game that gets them on everybody's radar. Do you have any of those guys in mind going into this postseason that could be the next Tyler Hero? I've got a few names, but of course, if you have
Tyrese Maxey.
I have him on the list. I do agree with you there. I would not be shocked.
And he's actually playing way less for the Sixers recently. And if Doc gives him more run, that guy's a bucket, and it's kind of what they need. I think he's better than Shake Milton, to be honest, even though I don't mind Shake Milton.
I think Shake, like this year, has really stepped it up as far as the scoring output goes. But I do agree. I don't know if Maxey's quite better than Milton yet. I think that he's got a better ceiling than Milton does as far as in the future goes. But I don't know. I'm not sure if I'd put him above Milton yet. But I wouldn't say it's super far-fetched. I think it's relatively close.
But your question is which of these guys can go off? I think Maxey can go off.
Going off, Maxey over Milton all day long. I think Maxey has the ability to take over a game better than Milton does. I think Milton kind of knows he's a role player, and that's what he's going to stick with, personally.
No, I'm thinking. I mean, you guys, we're recording this. We don't prep this.
No.
I got Tyrese Maxey. Go ahead.
I got one name. I actually got a couple of names, but the ones that I feel more confident in. Desmond Bane. He's not a guy that works on ball.
Like Memphis Grizzlies.
A couple of opportunities from Ja where he could have Klay Thompson moment where he's 5 for 5 from 3 by the first quarter. All of a sudden he's got 15 points. They got a big lead, and they're like, you know what? Feed the hot hand. They keep giving him the ball. He's knocking down threes. All of a sudden now he's able to attack the basket a little bit more because he's just feeling it. Then maybe he ends the night with 30 points, right? I think that's possible. I do think that Desmond Bane is going to be a very good role player, borderline 6th man in the future. Works a lot off ball right now, catch and shoot from 3. That's what he does. And I think that he could definitely have one of those days where he's just really feeling it during the playoffs. Josh feeding him the ball. Maybe Jaren Jackson Jr. is out or not playing as much, so they're giving Desmond Bane more opportunity and more run time. I think he's got an opportunity to do that during the playoffs. Now, of course, we're not guaranteeing any of this, but he's one of those guys. And the one other guy that I do have on this list that I at least wanted to mention was Peyton Pritchard. We mentioned him before. I wouldn't be surprised if he got a little bit more run time during the playoffs. He was playing very well to begin the season. He was a senior coming out of the draft, so we knew that he'd be impactful right away. Maybe if Kemba's a little bit injured, which kind of happens a lot, or Kemba's having an off night, they give Pritchard more playing time, and all of a sudden maybe he ends the night with 20 or 25 points. Boom, Tyler Hero moment. Right. So those are my guys. I don't know if you have anyone else, but that's all I've got. So if you have anyone else you wanted to mention,
this is perfect. We try to keep it to 30 minutes. This is great. I'm a little frustrated with Tyler Hero.
Rough season for him for sure. Rough season.
Yeah. And I've been watching him a little more on social. Like this is what I look for. Maybe everyone has their own criteria. But when a player starts responding to fans about how poorly he's playing, I'm curious where their mind's at, right? Like today, like he was like, he tweeted something. Let me read it to you. It's not my fault if I don't meet your likeness. So first off, I don't know what that means, but I kind of know what it means. But second, it's like, dude, don't worry about being liked. Like, people have a right to come at you. You played really well in the bubble. You got a starting point guard spot, and you fell off. No problem. Everyone has that. Like, if you're out there answering internet trolls, like, where's your focus at, man? And the second part is, if you're already going to answer them, why not take ownership?
Yep.
So that's where I'm at. Take
I do agree.
responsibility.
I think he was
Power and
overrated.
responsibility.
I think he was overrated as far as the bubble performances go because he had like one really good game. And I mean, honestly, after that, he kind of played pretty poorly during the finals. Honestly, Kendrick Nunn played better than him during the NBA finals, in my opinion. So I do think he was overrated, but I do agree as far as his mentality goes. Like, he and Anthony Edwards would be two of the guys, as far as young guys, that I would say have more of the well-known personalities in the NBA. But there's a major difference between the two of them. Major difference. Anthony Edwards is kind of more of like the fun-loving, confident, cocky guy that's not necessarily too worried about what other people think about him. He's just kind of having fun and enjoying the ride, right? He's very confident in his abilities, and he's not going to let you get under his skin. Tyler Hero kind of seems a bit like the opposite. He's very confident in his own abilities, but he's struggling right now, and he's letting the media and letting other people get under his skin, which is not something that you want to see. You don't want to see a player that you hope to become a star someday get frustrated and let that affect their play on the court when people start criticizing them. It's not a good recipe for a player's future career, at least in my opinion. So if you have anything else, go ahead. But I think that finally wraps up episode 4 of Scouts for us, Andrew. Feels pretty good. See you guys.
Feels amazing. You're an amazing co-host.
Thank you. I appreciate it.